rich woman rejects orphan's hug, what happens years later leaves her in tears. It was a crisp autumn morning in the heart of the city. The streets buzzed with activity, and the air was filled with the faint aroma of roasted chestnuts from a vendor nearby. Claire Whitmore, a woman of elegance and privilege, stepped out of her chauffeur-driven car in front of a luxury department store. Draped in a fur coat and wearing a wide-brimmed hat, Claire exuded sophistication and an air of untouchable confidence. As Claire strode toward the store's entrance, her heels clicking on the pavement, she noticed a small boy sitting on the curb. He couldn't have been older than 7 or 8, his clothes patched and his sneakers worn. His eyes were large and hopeful as he watched the bustling world around him. "Excuse me, ma'am," the boy called out as Claire approached. His voice was soft but determined. Claire paused, her manicured fingers adjusting the collar of her coat. "Yes," she said, her tone cool and disinterested. "I'm James," the boy said, standing up. "I don't mean to bother you, but could you spare some change? I'm trying to get some food." Claire glanced at him, her expression unchanging. "I'm afraid I don't carry cash," she said, brushing past him. James hesitated, then ran after her. "Wait, I just wanted to say thank you for stopping. Most people don't even notice me." Claire sighed, clearly impatient. "You're welcome," she said curtly, hoping that would end the interaction. But then, to her surprise, James stepped closer and held out his arms as if to hug her. "You're the first person to talk to me today," he said. "Can I give you a hug?" Claire recoiled slightly, her polished demeanor slipping for a moment. "No, thank you," she said sharply, stepping back. "I don't know you." The boy's face fell, but he quickly masked his disappointment with a small, brave smile. "That's okay," he said quietly. "Have a nice day, ma'am." Without another word, Claire turned and entered the store, the glass doors closing behind her. But as she walked through the lavish displays of designer handbags and jewelry, she couldn't shake the image of the boy's face. She pushed the thought aside, convincing herself that it wasn't her problem. After all, she had more important things to worry about: her upcoming charity gala, her social standing, and the perfect outfit for her next event. Years passed, and Claire's life continued as it always had. She attended exclusive parties, graced the covers of society magazines, and expanded her already vast fortune. She rarely thought of that autumn morning or the little boy on the curb. To her, it was a fleeting moment, insignificant in the grand scheme of her carefully curated life. But life, as it often does, has a way of weaving unexpected threads into the fabric of our stories. One evening, Claire was attending a high-profile charity auction at an opulent ballroom. The event was packed with influential figures, all dressed in their finest. Claire, as always, was the center of attention, her diamond earrings catching the light as she mingled with the elite. As the evening progressed, the host took the stage to introduce a special guest speaker, a philanthropist whose work had transformed countless lives. The audience applauded politely as a young man stepped onto the stage. Claire sipped her champagne, only half listening, until the man began to speak. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice warm and confident. "My name is James Harris, and I'm here to share a story about how small acts of kindness can change lives." Claire froze, her glass halfway to her lips. The name sounded familiar, but it wasn't until she looked at the stage that realization struck her. The young man standing before her was the boy from the curb all those years ago. Gone were the patched clothes and worn sneakers. In their place was a tailored suit and an air of quiet dignity. "I grew up in the foster system," James continued. "For much of my childhood, I felt invisible, like I didn't matter. But along the way, there were moments when someone stopped, listened, or showed me a small kindness. Those moments gave me hope." Claire's heart sank. She remembered that morning vividly now, the way she had brushed him off, the way she had rejected his hug. She felt a pang of guilt, wondering if she had been one of those moments, or one of the countless people who had passed him by. James paused on the stage, scanning the room filled with glittering jewels and polished smiles. His voice softened, but it carried weight as he spoke. "There was a moment that stood out to me as a child, a moment that shaped how I viewed the world and my place in it. I was sitting on the curb of a busy street, feeling invisible, when a woman stopped to speak with me. Claire's grip tightened on her champagne flute, the guilt now coursing through her like a cold wind. She lowered the glass, her mind racing as James continued. "She didn't give me money or food," he said, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "And she didn't even hug me when I asked. But for those brief moments, I felt seen. And even though she walked away, that encounter planted a seed in me, a seed that reminded me people do notice, even if they don't always show it." Claire felt her chest tighten. She hadn't realized how much that fleeting moment might have meant to the boy she had dismissed so easily. Her mind replayed the memory. His hopeful eyes, the way he had bravely masked his disappointment, and the sharpness in her own response. James cleared his throat, his tone shifting from reflective to resolute. "That seed grew as I encountered others who showed me kindness. Teachers, mentors, and strangers who didn't look past me. Because of them, I made it through high school, got into college on a scholarship, and started working in nonprofit development. Today, I run an organization that provides resources and mentorship to foster youth across the country." The audience erupted into applause, their admiration palpable. James smiled, his confidence unwavering. "I want to remind all of you tonight that even the smallest gestures can have the greatest impact. You never know how a moment of kindness can change someone's life." Claire clapped along with the crowd, though her hands felt heavy. Her mind was consumed by a single thought. Did I offer him even the smallest kindness that day? Or did I leave him feeling invisible once again? The auction resumed, but Claire couldn't focus. She excused herself to the hallway, her heels echoing against the marble floors. She needed air, clarity, something to anchor her spiraling thoughts. As she leaned against a pillar, staring at the glittering chandelier above, she heard a voice behind her. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" Claire turned to find James standing a few feet away, his concerned expression genuine. Up close, he was every bit the composed and successful man she had seen on stage, but there was still a warmth in his eyes, a reflection of the boy he once was. "Yes, I'm fine," Claire said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Your speech was moving." James smiled. "Thank you. It's always a privilege to share my story." Claire hesitated, her heart pounding. "But I think I may have been the woman you mentioned in your story." James's eyebrows lifted slightly, his expression curious but not unkind. "You were?" "I think so," Claire said, her voice faltering. "It was years ago. You asked me for change and I didn't give you any. You asked for a hug and I turned you down. I've been replaying that moment in my head since you spoke, wondering if I failed you." James's expression softened, and he stepped closer. "You didn't fail me," he said gently. "That moment stayed with me, not because of what you didn't do, but because you stopped. You looked at me. For a kid who felt invisible, that was enough to leave a mark." Claire's breath caught and tears welled in her eyes. "I wish I had done more," she whispered. "I wish I had been better." James reached out, resting a hand on her arm. "You don't have to carry that weight," he said. "What matters is that you're here now. And you care?" Claire blinked back tears, nodding. "I do care. And I want to help. Is there a way I can get involved with your work?" James smiled, his gratitude genuine. "Of course. We can always use more hands and hearts." Over the weeks that followed, Claire threw herself into supporting James's organization. She attended meetings, helped organize fundraisers, and even began mentoring young people in the program. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose that went beyond her carefully curated social life. Working alongside James, Claire saw firsthand the impact of his efforts. She met teenagers who had been on the brink of giving up but found hope through the mentorship and resources his organization provided. She listened to their stories, their dreams, and their struggles, and she found herself inspired by their resilience. One evening, after a particularly successful fundraiser, Claire and James sat in his office, reviewing the night's achievements. Claire leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smile on her face. "You've built something extraordinary here, James," she said. "I'm honored to be a part of it." James glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "You've brought so much to this organization, Claire. Your connections, your passion, your willingness to listen. It's made a difference." Claire shook her head. I've learned more from these kids than I could ever teach them. They remind me of what really matters. James nodded. That's the beauty of this work. It's not just about helping others. It's about growing together. As the years went by, Claire's involvement with the organization deepened. She became a mentor to several young people, offering guidance and support as they navigated the challenges of growing up in foster care. One of her ments, a bright and ambitious girl named Mia, became particularly close to her. Mia was an aspiring artist with dreams of attending a prestigious art school, but financial barriers and self-doubt had held her back. Claire saw herself in Mia's determination and vulnerability, and she made it her mission to help the young woman realize her potential. With Claire's encouragement and support, Mia applied to her dream school and was accepted with a full scholarship. When she shared the news with Claire, they both cried tears of joy. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," Mia said, hugging Claire tightly. "I'll never forget that." Claire smiled through her tears. "You're going to do amazing things, Mia. I'm so proud of you." On the 10th anniversary of James's organization, a gala was held to celebrate its achievements and honor the people who had contributed to its success. Claire stood in the crowd, watching with pride as James took the stage to deliver his speech. "This organization wouldn't be where it is today without the incredible people who have joined me on this journey," James said, his voice strong and heartfelt. "And tonight, I want to recognize someone who has gone above and beyond to make a difference." He gestured toward Claire, who looked at him in surprise. Claire Whitmore has been more than a supporter. She's been a mentor, a friend, and an inspiration to so many of us. Her kindness and generosity have changed lives, including mine. The audience erupted into applause as Claire made her way to the stage. James hugged her warmly before stepping aside so she could speak. Claire took a deep breath, her emotions swirling. "I've spent much of my life focused on myself. My image, my success, my comfort," she began. "But meeting James reminded me of something I had forgotten: the power of connection, of seeing and being seen. This work has given my life meaning in ways I never imagined, and I am so grateful to be a part of it." She paused, her voice trembling. "James, you've taught me that it's never too late to make a difference. And for that, I thank you." The applause that followed was deafening, and as Claire stepped off the stage, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. As the applause subsided and Claire returned to her seat, she reflected on how far she had come. The Claire Whitmore of years past, self-absorbed and detached, felt like a distant memory. Her involvement with James's organization had not only changed the lives of others but had also transformed her own. After the gala, James approached Claire, a wide smile on his face. "You did great up there," he said. "I think you've inspired a lot of people tonight." Claire laughed softly. "If you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be giving a speech at a charity gala, I would have called you crazy." "Well, life has a funny way of surprising us," James replied. "And you've embraced it beautifully." Claire smiled, her heart full. "Thank you, James, for everything." The next day, Claire decided to take a walk through the city, a ritual she had adopted to reflect and clear her mind. She found herself drawn to the neighborhood where she had first met James. The bustling streets looked much the same, but her perspective had shifted entirely. As she walked, she spotted a young boy sitting on a bench, his clothes worn and his gaze distant. The sight stopped her in her tracks, and she felt a wave of emotion. He reminded her of James, of that fateful moment that had unknowingly set her on this journey. Claire approached the boy gently, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Hi there," she said softly. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, startled but curious. "I'm fine," he mumbled. Claire sat down beside him. "You know, when I was younger, I met someone sitting just like you are now. He was kind, brave, and full of potential. And I'd like to think you're the same." The boy blinked, his expression softening. "You really think so?" "I know so," Claire said with a warm smile. "What's your name?" "Marcus," the boy replied. "Well, Marcus, I'm Claire. And if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." She handed him a card with her contact information, something she now carried everywhere for moments like this. Marcus hesitated, then took the card, a small smile forming on his face. "Thank you," he said. I'll keep it. Over time, Claire continued to encounter moments like this, small, seemingly inconsequential interactions that reminded her of the power of connection. She began to mentor more children through James's organization, focusing on those who felt unseen and unheard. Each child had their own story, their own dreams, and Claire made it her mission to help them see their worth. One of her men's, a boy named Elijah, was particularly reserved. He rarely spoke about his past, but Claire noticed his talent for writing. She encouraged him to keep a journal, and over time, Elijah began to open up through his words. One day, he shared a poem he had written about feeling invisible but finding hope in unexpected places. The poem brought tears to Claire's eyes, and she encouraged Elijah to submit it to a local writing competition. To his surprise and delight, he won first place. "You believed in me," Elijah said, his voice filled with gratitude. "No one's ever done that before." Claire smiled, her eyes shining. "Elijah, you have a gift, and the world deserves to see it." As the years passed, James's organization continued to flourish. New programs were launched, more children were reached, and the impact of their work grew exponentially. Claire became a pillar of the organization, her dedication and compassion inspiring others to join the cause. At the same time, Claire began to take stock of her own life. She sold her sprawling mansion and moved into a smaller, cozier home closer to the community she served. She gave away much of her wealth, investing in programs and scholarships that supported foster youth. For the first time, Claire felt truly fulfilled. Her transformation didn't go unnoticed. Friends and acquaintances from her old social circle often approached her, curious about her new path. "You've changed, Claire," one of them said during a luncheon. "I barely recognize you." Claire smiled. "I'd like to think I've just found myself." One day, James invited Claire to join him for a visit to one of the organization's partner schools. The school was located in a rural area, serving children who had limited access to resources. As they walked through the halls, Claire marveled at the energy and enthusiasm of the students. In one classroom, a young girl named Amara caught Claire's attention. She was drawing a mural on the chalkboard, her creativity and talent evident in every stroke. "That's beautiful," Claire said, approaching her. "You have an incredible gift." Amara beamed, her eyes lighting up. "Thank you. I want to be an artist when I grow up." "You can be anything you want to be," Claire said. "And I'll make sure you have the tools to chase your dreams." True to her word, Claire sponsored Amara's art supplies and arranged for her to attend a summer program for young artists. Years later, Amara's work would be featured in galleries, and she would credit Claire as the person who believed in her when no one else did. As the 10th anniversary of Claire's involvement with James's organization approached, she found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The woman who had once walked past a boy on the curb without a second thought was now a mentor, a supporter, and an advocate for change. During the anniversary celebration, James surprised Claire by presenting her with an award for her contributions. "Claire Whitmore has shown us that it's never too late to make a difference," he said. "Her compassion and dedication have changed countless lives, including mine." As Claire accepted the award, she looked out at the crowd of supporters, mentors, and children whose lives had been touched by the organization. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke. "This journey has been the greatest gift of my life," she said. "It's taught me that we all have the power to make a difference, no matter where we start or how far we've come. And for that, I am endlessly grateful." In her later years, Claire continued to work tirelessly for the organization, mentoring young people and sharing her story to inspire others. And though her journey had begun with a single moment on a busy street, it had blossomed into something far greater, a legacy of compassion, resilience, and hope. Because sometimes, the smallest gestures can spark the biggest transformations. And for Claire Whitmore, that transformation had not only changed her life, it had changed the lives of everyone she touched. As Claire's involvement with the organization deepened, her name became synonymous with second chances and resilience. The transformation of her life from a self-absorbed socialite to a compassionate advocate was a story that resonated with many. Newspapers and magazines often featured her in stories about philanthropy, but Claire always redirected the focus to the work of James's organization and the children it served. One day, James invited Claire to join him on a visit to a new community center funded by the organization. The center, located in a struggling neighborhood, provided after-school programs, counseling services, and job training for foster youth and their families. It was a dream that had taken years to bring to life, and Claire was excited to see the impact it would have. When they arrived, the center was buzzing with activity. Children were laughing and playing in the courtyard, teenagers were attending a workshop on college readiness, and parents were meeting with counselors to discuss their goals. Claire's heart swelled with pride as she walked through the halls, seeing the tangible results of their efforts. In one of the classrooms, a teenage boy named Malik was giving a presentation to a group of younger children. He spoke confidently about his journey from foster care to becoming a college student, crediting the organization for giving him the support and guidance he needed. "I used to think I didn't matter," Malik said, his voice steady. "But then I came here, and I realized that I'm not alone. People care about me, and that gave me the strength to keep going." As Malik finished his presentation, the room erupted into applause. Claire felt tears prick her eyes as she realized just how much of an impact the organization and her own efforts had made. Later that evening, as Claire and James sat in the courtyard of the community center, watching the sunset, Claire turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about how this all started?" she asked. James smiled. "All the time. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can change everything." Claire nodded. "That day on the curb, I thought I was doing nothing more than walking past a boy asking for change. I didn't realize I was walking past someone who would change my life." James chuckled softly. "And I thought I was just asking for food. I didn't realize I was planting a seed in someone's heart." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of children playing in the background. Finally, Claire spoke again. "I've spent so much of my life trying to find purpose," she said. "But it wasn't until I met you that I realized it's not about finding purpose, it's about creating it." James nodded. "And you've created something incredible, Claire. You've given so many people hope, including me." As the years went by, Claire and James continued to work together, expanding the reach of the organization and touching countless lives. Claire's personal transformation inspired others to reevaluate their own priorities and get involved in causes that mattered to them. One of Claire's proudest moments came when Mia, her first mentee, graduated from art school and held her first gallery exhibition. The event was a celebration of Mia's talent and resilience, and Claire was there to cheer her on every step of the way. As Claire admired one of Mia's paintings, a vibrant, hopeful piece depicting a single flower growing in a cracked sidewalk, Mia approached her with a smile. "That one's for you," Mia said. "You helped me see the beauty in the broken places." Claire felt a lump in her throat as she hugged Mia. "You've always had the beauty inside you," she said. "I'm just glad I could help you share it with the world." In her later years, Claire began to focus on documenting her journey, hoping to inspire others to embrace the power of kindness and connection. She wrote a memoir titled A Second Chance at Life, Finding Purpose Through Compassion. The book became a bestseller, with readers around the world finding inspiration in her story. In one passage, Claire wrote, "Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes it's in the moments we least expect, the fleeting interactions, the small gestures, that we find our greatest purpose." My journey began with a boy on a curb and a moment of regret. But that moment grew into something beautiful, something that changed my life and the lives of so many others. And for that, I am forever grateful. On the 20th anniversary of James's organization, a massive celebration was held at the city's largest convention center. The event brought together supporters, mentors, and alumni from across the country, all there to honor the impact of the work they had done together. Claire was given the honor of delivering the keynote speech. Standing on the stage, she looked out at the crowd, at the faces of the people whose lives had been touched by the organization, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "When I first joined this organization, I thought I was here to help others," Claire began. "But what I didn't realize was that it would help me just as much. It taught me the power of connection, the importance of seeing and being seen, and the beauty of second chances." She paused, her voice trembling with emotion. "To James, to the mentors, to the children and families we serve, Thank you. Thank you for teaching me what it means to live a meaningful life." The crowd erupted into applause, and as Claire stepped off the stage, James embraced her warmly. "You've come a long way," he said with a smile. "So have you," Claire replied. "And I couldn't be prouder of what we've built together." As Claire and James continued their journey, they knew that their work would outlast them. The seeds they had planted, through moments of kindness, acts of compassion, and years of dedication, had grown into a thriving forest of hope and resilience. And though their paths had started in vastly different places, they had found each other, creating a legacy that would endure for generations to come. As the years passed, the work of James's organization and Claire's contributions expanded further, touching lives across continents. The foundation, now formally named the Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation, became a symbol of hope for foster youth, struggling families, and underprivileged communities worldwide. Its reach extended into education reform, healthcare access, and mental health advocacy. One of the foundation's most significant accomplishments was the establishment of the Pathways Initiative, a global program designed to create clear and accessible paths to success for foster youth. Through scholarships, mentorships, and vocational training, the initiative became a beacon of opportunity for children who had grown up believing they had none. Claire, though now in her 70s, remained actively involved in the foundation. She often traveled to visit the centers and communities they served, bringing her warmth and wisdom to every interaction. At one such visit to a foster home in a small town, she met a young girl named Sophia. Sophia, shy and reserved, reminded Claire of herself as a child. She was hesitant to share her dreams, but through gentle conversations, Claire discovered that Sophia loved to write. Over time, Claire encouraged Sophia to embrace her talent, providing her with journals, books, and even arranging for her to meet with published authors from the Foundation's network. One day, Sophia handed Claire a story she had written, a heartfelt tale about finding family in unexpected places. As Claire read the story, she felt tears well up in her eyes. It was raw, emotional, and full of hope. "This is beautiful, Sophia," Claire said, her voice trembling. "You have a gift, and the world needs to see it." Sophia beamed, her confidence growing. With Claire's mentorship, she eventually entered her story into a national competition and won. Sophia's journey became a source of inspiration for others, proving that even the smallest encouragement could unlock a world of potential. Meanwhile, James, now in his late 40s, had taken on an even larger role as a global advocate for foster youth. He was invited to speak at the World Summit on Children's Rights, where he shared his journey and the transformative work of the foundation. "Growing up in the foster system, I often felt like I didn't belong anywhere," James said, addressing an audience of world leaders, activists, and changemakers. "But through the kindness of strangers and the support of this incredible organization, I found my place. And I've learned that belonging isn't about where you come from, it's about who believes in you." His words moved the audience to a standing ovation, and many approached him afterward to pledge their support for the foundation's initiatives. One of the most poignant moments in Claire and James's journey came during the unveiling of the Whitmore Harris Resilience Center, a sprawling campus that served as a headquarters for the foundation's global operations. The center housed educational facilities, counseling services, and training programs, all designed to empower foster youth and their families. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Claire and James stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. Claire spoke first, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "When James and I first crossed paths, neither of us could have imagined this," she said. "But what I've learned is that even the smallest moments can plant the seeds for something extraordinary. This center represents not just our journey, but the journey of every child who dares to dream and every person who believes in them." James followed, his tone equally heartfelt. "This center is a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and hope. It's proof that when we come together to lift each other up, we can create something far greater than ourselves." The audience erupted into applause as Claire and James cut the ribbon, officially opening the center. As they walked through its halls, filled with children laughing, learning, and dreaming, they felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. In their later years, Claire and James began to focus on ensuring the sustainability of their work. They trained a new generation of leaders to carry the foundation forward, sharing their knowledge and instilling their values in those who would follow in their footsteps. Mia, now a prominent artist and advocate, took on a leadership role within the foundation. Her art had become a voice for the voiceless, and her passion for fostering creativity in others made her a natural fit for the role. Sophia, now a published author, joined the foundation's communications team, using her storytelling skills to share the impact of their work with the world. Her stories inspired donors, volunteers, and policymakers to support the foundation's mission. As Claire and James watched these young leaders step into their roles, they felt a deep sense of peace. They knew the foundation was in good hands, and their legacy would continue to grow. One evening, as Claire and James sat together on the porch of Claire's home, they reflected on the journey they had shared. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the world they had worked so hard to change. "Do you ever think about that day?" Claire asked, her voice soft. "The day we met?" James smiled. "Every time I tell my story. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can change everything." Claire nodded. "I've spent my life trying to make up for that moment. But now, I realize it wasn't about what I did or didn't do that day. It was about what it set in motion." James reached over, placing a hand on hers. "You've more than made up for it, Claire. You've changed lives. You've changed my life." Claire smiled, her eyes glistening. "And you've given me a second chance at mine. For that, I'll always be grateful." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the stars began to appear in the sky. Though their journey was nearing its end, they knew their work would live on, through the foundation, through the people they had helped, and through the countless lives they had inspired. Because in the end, it wasn't about where they had started. It was about the legacy they had built together, a legacy of compassion, resilience, and hope. As the Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation reached its 30th anniversary, its impact had become monumental. Across the globe, thousands of foster youth, underserved families, and communities had been empowered to break cycles of poverty, access education, and build fulfilling lives. The foundation had grown into a movement, fueled by the story of two people whose paths had crossed in the most unlikely of ways. Claire, now in her late 70s, had stepped back from daily operations but remained a guiding presence within the foundation. James, in his early 50s, had taken on the role of global ambassador, traveling to advocate for foster care reform and mental health awareness. Together, they had created a legacy that felt unstoppable. One of their proudest moments came when the foundation opened its first international campus in Nairobi, Kenya. The campus, named the Seeds of Hope Center, was designed to provide education, healthcare, and vocational training to vulnerable children and their families. The opening ceremony was attended by dignitaries, community leaders, and alumni of the foundation who had traveled from all corners of the globe to celebrate. Claire, sitting in the front row, felt tears welling in her eyes as she listened to the stories of young people whose lives had been transformed by the foundation's work. A young woman named Amina took the stage, her voice steady and filled with gratitude. "I grew up in a village where opportunities were scarce, and hope was even scarcer," Amina said. "But this foundation gave me a chance to dream, to learn, and to grow. Today, I'm a nurse, and I've returned to my village to serve my community. None of this would have been possible without the seeds of hope planted by this incredible organization." The crowd erupted into applause, and as Amina stepped off the stage, she approached Claire and James with a bouquet of flowers. "Thank you," she said, her eyes shining, "for believing in people like me." Claire accepted the flowers with trembling hands, her heart full. "It's people like you who inspire us to keep going," she said softly. Back in the United States, Claire began focusing on another project close to her heart, writing her final book. Titled Moments That Matter, A Life of Connection and Change, the book was a reflection on her journey, the lessons she had learned, and the people who had shaped her path. In one chapter, she wrote about the moment she met James. "I didn't know it at the time, but that single moment on a busy street changed the course of my life. It wasn't what I did that day, it was what I didn't do. I didn't offer a hug, a kind word, or a hand to hold. And for years I carried the weight of that regret. But that moment also planted a seed that grew into something far greater than I could have imagined. It taught me that even our smallest actions or inactions can ripple outward in ways we may never see. The book became an instant bestseller, with readers from all walks of life finding inspiration in Claire's words. It was praised for its honesty, humility, and unwavering belief in the power of human connection. Meanwhile, James's advocacy work brought him to new heights. He testified before international panels on foster care reform, worked with governments to implement policies that supported youth aging out of the system, and collaborated with organizations to address the root causes of systemic inequities. One of James's most significant achievements was spearheading a global initiative called Home for Every Heart. The program aimed to provide safe and loving homes for foster youth by connecting them with families, mentors, and resources. Within its first 5 years, the initiative had helped over 50,000 children find stable and supportive environments. During a summit to celebrate the program's success, James was presented with the Global Humanitarian Award. In his acceptance speech, he reflected on the journey that had brought him there. "I've spent my life trying to give back the hope and kindness that was given to me," James said. "And none of this would have been possible without the people who believed in me. People like Claire Whitmore, who showed me that even a single moment of connection can change everything." Claire, seated in the audience, felt a swell of pride as the room erupted into applause. She knew that James's words weren't just a reflection of their shared journey, they were a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and the human spirit. As the foundation prepared to celebrate its 35th anniversary, Claire and James began planning a special event to honor the countless people who had contributed to its success. The event, held at the sprawling Whitmore Harris Resilience Center, brought together alumni, mentors, donors, and community leaders from around the world. During the celebration, Claire and James were surprised with a tribute video created by the foundation's staff. The video featured testimonials from people whose lives had been transformed by their work, children who had become leaders, families who had found stability, and communities that had been uplifted. One testimonial from Mia brought Claire to tears. "Claire and James taught me that no dream is too big and no obstacle too great," Mia said. "They didn't just change my life, they showed me how to change the lives of others. And for that, I will always be grateful." As the video ended, the audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the hall. Claire and James stood side by side, their hands clasped, their eyes glistening with emotion. "This journey has been the greatest honor of my life," Claire said, addressing the crowd. "It's shown me that no matter where we start, we all have the power to make a difference. And together, we've created something extraordinary." James nodded, his voice steady and filled with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in us, for supporting us, and for carrying this mission forward. This foundation isn't just ours, it belongs to all of you." In their final years, Claire and James continued to mentor, inspire, and guide the next generation of leaders. They spent their days reflecting on the legacy they had built and the lives they had touched. And though their journey was nearing its end, they knew that the seeds they had planted would continue to grow. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Claire turned to James with a smile. "Do you think we did enough?" she asked. James reached over, placing a hand on hers. "More than enough," he said. "We created something that will outlast us. And that's all anyone can hope for." Claire nodded, her heart full. "Thank you, James. For everything." "And thank you," James replied, "for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." As the stars twinkled above, Claire and James knew that their legacy was secure, a legacy of compassion, resilience, and hope that would inspire generations to come. As Claire and James entered the final chapter of their lives, the world around them bore witness to the profound impact of their work. The Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation had become a global institution, synonymous with hope and transformation. Its programs spanned continents, and its alumni numbered in the tens of thousands, each a testament to the power of second chances and the beauty of connection. But even as their physical presence within the organization lessened, Claire and James remained the heart of its mission. Their names were spoken with reverence, their stories shared in classrooms, conferences, and communities as a beacon of what was possible when compassion met purpose. One day, as Claire walked through the halls of the Foundation's headquarters, she noticed a group of children touring the facility. Their guide, a young woman who had once been a mentee in the program, spoke animatedly about the history of the Foundation, her voice filled with pride. "And this," the guide said, stopping in front of a large portrait of Claire and James, "is where it all began." Claire Whitmore and James Harris believed that even the smallest moments of kindness could spark something extraordinary. They proved that one act of compassion could ripple outward to change the world. The children stared at the portrait in awe, their eyes wide with curiosity. Claire lingered in the background, her heart swelling with emotion. She had never sought recognition, but knowing that her story continued to inspire others filled her with quiet joy. As the group moved on, Claire found herself standing before the portrait. She studied the faces captured in the painting, hers and James's, each etched with determination and hope. A lifetime of challenges and triumphs had brought them to this moment, and she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Meanwhile, James was preparing for one of the most significant speeches of his life. The United Nations had invited him to deliver the keynote address at its annual Summit on Children's Rights, a fitting recognition of his decades of advocacy and leadership. As he stood before the assembly, James's voice carried the weight of his journey and the passion that had fueled it. "When I was a child, I felt invisible," he began. "I thought the world had no place for me. But through the kindness of strangers and the belief of people like Claire Whitmore, I discovered that I did belong, that I could make a difference." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Today, I stand here not as an individual, but as a representative of the countless children who have been given hope through the work of the Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation. Our mission has always been simple: to see the unseen, to hear the unheard, and to believe in the dreams of those who have been told they cannot dream." The audience erupted into applause, their admiration for James and his work palpable. As he stepped off the stage, he was met with handshakes, hugs, and words of gratitude from leaders, activists, and policymakers from around the world. Back at the Foundation's headquarters, plans were underway for a special tribute to Claire and James. The board of directors, led by Mia and Sophia, had decided to establish an annual award in their honor, the Whitmore Harris Legacy Award. The award would recognize individuals and organizations that embodied the values of compassion, resilience, and transformative leadership. On the day of the inaugural ceremony, Claire and James were seated in the front row, surrounded by friends, family, and supporters. The event was a celebration of their journey, filled with heartfelt speeches, video tributes, and performances by young artists and musicians who had been mentored through the foundation. As the ceremony reached its climax, Mia took the stage to present the award. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke. "Claire and James have not only changed my life, they've shown me what it means to live with purpose," she said. "Their legacy is not just in the programs they've built or the lives they've touched, it's in the countless acts of kindness they've inspired in others. This award is our way of ensuring that their spirit lives on, in every corner of the world." The audience rose to their feet, their applause thunderous as Claire and James were called to the stage. As they accepted the award, their emotions were visible, tears glistened in their eyes, their gratitude unspoken but deeply felt. "This is not our legacy alone," Claire said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "It belongs to everyone who has believed in this mission, who has worked tirelessly to create change, and who has dared to dream of a better world." James nodded, his voice filled with conviction. "Our greatest hope is that this work will continue long after we're gone, that the seeds we've planted will grow into forests of hope and opportunity for generations to come. Thank you for carrying this vision forward." As the years went on, Claire and James found peace in the knowledge that their work was in good hands. They spent their days surrounded by loved ones, reflecting on their journey and cherishing the moments of connection that had defined their lives. One evening, as they sat together on a veranda overlooking the Foundation's main campus, Claire turned to James with a wistful smile. "Do you think we've done enough?" she asked. James reached for her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "More than enough," he said. "We've built something that will outlive us, a legacy of love, resilience, and hope. That's all anyone can ask for. Claire nodded, her heart full. I'm grateful for every moment, James. For this journey, for the lives we've touched, and for you. And I'm grateful for you, James replied. You showed me that even the smallest moments can change everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in hues of gold and amber, Claire and James sat in silence, their hearts at peace. They had lived lives of meaning and purpose, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire generations to come. And as the first stars appeared in the night sky, their story remained a beacon of hope, a reminder that compassion and connection could transform not just lives, but the world itself. As the years passed, Claire and James continued to live with a profound sense of gratitude, their bonds strengthening even further as they watched the next generation take the reins of their legacy. The Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation was now a cornerstone of global change, its programs running in over 40 countries and its alumni rising as leaders in their own right. Claire, now well into her 80s, had retired to a peaceful countryside home but remained deeply connected to the foundation. Though she no longer traveled frequently, her phone rang constantly with calls from mentors, partners, and friends seeking her wisdom. One such call came from Mia, who had taken on the role of CEO of the foundation. Claire, Mia said, her voice filled with excitement, we're launching a new initiative, and we want your blessing to name it after you. Claire chuckled softly. Mia, you've already named enough buildings and scholarships after me. What's this one about? Mia explained that the initiative, Claire's cornerstone, would focus on bridging the gap between foster youth and sustainable careers by providing tailored mentorship and job placement opportunities. We wanted it to reflect your belief that every young person deserves a strong foundation to build their future. Claire was silent for a moment, moved by the thoughtfulness behind the program. Mia, she said finally, it would be my greatest honor. Meanwhile, James continued to travel the world, advocating for foster care reform and raising awareness about the importance of mentorship. He was often accompanied by alumni of the foundation, whose stories served as powerful testaments to the impact of their work. During a conference in Europe, James met a young man named Tomas, who had aged out of the foster system in his country with no support and had struggled to find his footing. Through the foundation, Tomas had been given access to education and counseling, eventually becoming a social worker dedicated to helping others in similar situations. You saved my life, Mr. Harris, Tomas said during their meeting. I didn't think I had a future, but your foundation gave me one. James placed a hand on Tomas's shoulder, his voice filled with emotion. You saved your own life, Tomas. We just gave you the tools to do it. As the foundation approached its 40th anniversary, plans were set in motion for a grand celebration that would honor not only its founders but also the countless individuals who had contributed to its success. The event, titled 40 Years of Resilience, was to be held at the foundation's flagship campus, with attendees traveling from all over the world to join the festivities. Claire, though frail, insisted on attending. This isn't just a celebration of the foundation, she told Mia and James. It's a celebration of every life we've touched and every life yet to be touched. I wouldn't miss it for the world. On the evening of the celebration, the campus was adorned with lights and banners, the air buzzing with excitement. Alumni shared stories, mentors reconnected with ments, and children laughed and played in the courtyards. It was a living testament to the power of hope and connection. Claire and James were seated at the head of the stage, their presence met with thunderous applause as the evening's program began. Mia, now a confident and eloquent leader, opened the event with a heartfelt speech. 40 years ago, a small act of compassion sparked a movement, Mia said. Today, we celebrate not just that moment, but the countless moments that followed. Moments of kindness, resilience, and transformation. Claire and James, you have given us all a gift that can never be repaid. Thank you for showing us what it means to truly make a difference. The crowd rose to their feet, their applause echoing into the night. As Claire and James looked out at the sea of faces, each one a story of triumph, perseverance, and love, they felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. That evening, after the celebration had ended, Claire and James sat together on a bench overlooking the campus. The stars above seemed to shine brighter than ever, as if the universe itself was honoring their legacy. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met that day? Claire asked, her voice soft but steady. James smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of the stars. Sometimes. But then I realize it doesn't matter. What matters is that we did meet, and that we chose to turn that moment into something beautiful. Claire nodded, her hand resting lightly on his. It's been a good life, hasn't it? The best, James replied. Because we didn't just live it, we shared it with each other and with the world. In the months that followed, Claire and James continued to inspire those around them, even as their health began to decline. Their names became symbols of hope, their story a guiding light for those who sought to create change. One day, as Claire rested in her home, she received a package from the foundation. Inside was a scrapbook lovingly created by the staff, filled with letters, photographs, and stories from people whose lives had been touched by their work. As Claire turned each page, her heart swelled with gratitude. Near the back of the scrapbook was a handwritten letter from James. Claire, we started this journey together, and I can't imagine it without you. You've been my partner, my friend, and my greatest inspiration. Thank you for believing in me and in what we could build together. This isn't the end, it's just another chapter in the story we've written with so many others. With all my gratitude, James. Tears filled Claire's eyes as she held the letter close. She knew that their work would continue, carried forward by the people they had inspired. In the years that followed, Claire and James's legacy endured, their names etched into the hearts of those who believed in the power of compassion and resilience. The Whitmore Harris Resilience Foundation continued to grow, its impact reaching every corner of the globe. And though Claire and James were no longer physically present, their story remained a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the smallest moments of kindness could ripple outward to change the world. Because in the end, their journey wasn't just about the lives they had touched, it was about the lives those people would go on to touch, creating a legacy that would last forever.